Hey there folks, welcome back, I guess. Let's Risky! Welcome to Risky Bitness. Tonight's video is going to be a quick tutorial on how to download and run Retroarch. Retroarch, what is that? Well, if you clicked on this video you probably have some idea. Retroarch is not an emulator, rather it is a platform for emulators. So it can be used to run any emulator that you could think of within its own shell. And that means a modified UI where all your emulators are in the same place and use the exact same interface. This is fantastic because I never have to touch my mouse and keyboard. I can switch games and platforms using just my controller. It's a beautiful thing. It can also be used on multiple platforms: Windows, Mac, tablets, phones, Raspberry Pi, Fire Stick. You can install this thing on just about anything. You can install it on a PS3 or a Wii. It's fantastic. You can install this thing on so many different platforms. It's absolutely fantastic. And I'm a huge fan of it. A lot of people, I think, dislike this because the UI is not super intuitive. And I've had a lot of people say to me, oh, I can't do anything. I can't find anything. I don't understand what's going on. It has no options, it has no features, and that's not the case. It has a lot of options, it's got a lot of features, but the UI is just not super intuitive. A few other things that I want to touch on, just running through the website here, retroarch.com, which is where you're going to go to download it. It talks about the interface. The interface is very nice, but like I said, it's not super intuitive, so we'll talk about that. It is cross-platform, right? Retroarch can run on all these different devices I talked about before. It has run-ahead latency, which means that it is less input lag than original hardware, and that is amazing. Highly configurable, we'll talk about that a little bit more as we go. Joypad auto config, which is such a no-brainer, it's fantastic. If you have an X input or direct input device, like a Microsoft Xbox 360 controller, or a PlayStation 4 DualShock 4, or really pretty much any controllers on the market these days, it's going to work straight out of the box, which is beautiful. Shaders can be used to make your games look really new or really old. It's a really wonderful, wonderful product. For achievements, you can now unlock retro achievements, which is so cool. You actually can play games that you played 30 years ago, but now you have achievements. I'm not a big achievement person, but I know that if you do enjoy achievements, this is definitely something you're going to get into. Netplay, you can play games online that never had an online feature and didn't even have an online service at the time. And of course they have built-in recording and streaming options. I don't really use that because I use third-party apps, but if you want to avoid that third-party overhead, it's really useful, especially if you're using a non-Windows device or a device where you can't run multiple apps at the same time. That really helps to stream and record your video and your gameplay. So a lot of really cool features. If you run down here, it gives you a whole bunch of news, all kinds of great stuff about what's going on with Retroarch. But we're just going to go back up here. It's going to ask you here, download stable or download nightly. Obviously you're going to want to go with stable. Nightly builds are betas basically, so if you want a beta test, you download the nightly, but otherwise go for the download stable. Now if clicking that doesn't automatically start downloading it, you just go down here and you can download the installer, or you can download the loose files. I prefer the installer, but the loose files work too. Either way, whatever is your preference. Here's the installer here, and I'll show you what happens if we download the loose files as well. You don't have to do both, you get to select one or the other, but just make sure that you're choosing what's better for you. This is a wizard that'll walk you through the process, and this is a manual installation here. So if I click on this, now obviously I already have Retroarch installed on my machine here, but I'm going to click next, I'm going to accept, and it already knows where my install location is because I've installed this before. Now you go through this just like you would go through any installer. You click on next, and now here it's telling me that this folder already exists, so I'm going to back out right now, but you're going to go ahead, you're going to complete that installation. Your other option, if that doesn't work, or if you just prefer to do it manually, you can download the files manually. They come in a 7-zip archive, which I'm going to play with really quickly in my other window. Just to make it a little bit cleaner, I'm going to pop it into its own folder. So I popped it into its own folder. It comes as a 7-zip file. 7-zip is a compression utility. If you don't already have it, you can download it for free. And then just unzip these files. This is going to take a moment. But what's really cool about when we take a look at this folder structure, you're going to see that a lot of the heavy lifting is kind of already done for you. So that's one nice thing about this installation. They definitely have improved things a lot since I first installed this app a while back. So just open up that folder and you can see that there's a lot of files in here. These are all these DLL files, configuration files, you know, all kinds of stuff that you're not really going to touch too much. So you might want to just right click on the Retroarch executable and just send a copy to your desktop. That way you can just get it right off your desktop, or you can drag it down to your quick launch bar as well. So just to use the fresh installation here, I'm going to run this real quick. And this is going to give us Retroarch. It's going to be in a window by default, which is fine. Now I'm going to turn on my controller. This is a Bluetooth controller, and I just want to see. Look at that. I did no configuration at all to this, and my controller, my Bluetooth 8x2 controller, it ran right out of the box. That's fantastic. Now I want this full screen. I apologize for the sudden disruption there. So I had to make an abrupt change because I realized that I had this really terrible flickering issue. And that's because I was using NVIDIA GeForce Experience to capture this window. So I've switched to OBS and that should be a lot better. Yeah, sorry about that. So anyway, what we're going to need to do at this point is we're going to have to go ahead and make this full screen. So settings, video full screen mode on. There we go. Now let me just make sure. There we go. Good. So I really wouldn't play too much with these settings right now. There might be some things we can do with them at other points, but you have to be really careful here because if you don't know what you're doing, you could really screw things up. So I don't want to get too deep into it. What I would like to really do, latency more stuttering anyway, what I would like to do at this point is just kind of get into the meat and potatoes of what it is that we're really doing here. And that's going to be playing games. So to do that, we're going to need to load an emulator. Now, Retroarch calls its emulators cores. One quick thing, I don't know if you've realized this, but I just turned on my controller out of the box. This thing works beautifully. I didn't have to do any configuration. My directional keys or my left analog stick move me around the menu. I'm going to pretend this is a PlayStation controller for a second and say my X button is select, my A button is my circle button is cancel, my triangle button is search, my start button is exit. It's very, very easy. So we get around here easy out of the box. I did no configuration for this. But now let's play some games. So to do that, we're going to have to load an emulator or a core. So for today's demonstration, I have 3 games I'm going to show you. If we look at this list of cores, you're going to notice that there are quite a number of cores here, all different kinds of things. We have arcade cores. I usually go with MAME for arcade cores. We have Commodore, we have all sorts of bizarre things you might not expect here. Magnavox Odyssey, Intellivision, MSX, PC Engine, TurboGrafx, PC Engine CD, 3DS, all the Nintendo consoles, Game Boy Advance, Wii, Nintendo 64 even, a lot of choices here. But if we're looking through Nintendo, one of the first things we're going to want to do is the old classic Nintendo NES/Famicom. So for that, there's a number of choices here. We've got FCEU, we've got Misen, we've got Nestopia, QuickNES. I've been using Nestopia mostly, so I'm going to stick with that for now. Misen is also a really great alternative because it has excellent accuracy. I haven't played with QuickNES yet, so that might be pretty good, but I guess we'll play with what we have for now. For Super Nintendo here, my personal favorite console of all time, Beast NES is probably the most popular one nowadays just because it has so much enhancement you can do and so many really cool things you can do outside of just play games. A lot of really cool features in Beast NES. I haven't played with that too much, but I am really partial to SNES 9X, so I'm going to go with that. That's just my personal preference. I feel like it's the most familiar and stable core, and it has a lot of options. But feel free when you download your cores to download different ones and play with the options and see what works best for you and what you like. There are certain options and setups that I really like, so I usually tend to go with the same emulators that I normally use. There's one more thing I wanted to do. We're not doing Dreamcast, Saturn, Genesis, any of that. Although if you are going to do it, Pico Drive is probably your best emulator for those three systems. I've had the best compatibility with Pico Drive and the best accuracy with Pico Drive. X68K is on there as well. It's a great emulator. Well, I want to look at PlayStation. So I like this one, Beetle PSX hardware. There's a much newer one called DuckStation that a lot of people also really like as well. That out of the box has better graphics, but I feel like Beetle has a lot better customization options. So I always go with Beetle. It has a lot of great features that DuckStation doesn't have. So that's my preference. You can also go with this Beetle PSX, which is non-hardware version. That's the same emulator without the hardware acceleration. So if you're having issues running certain games, that can be really, really helpful. So you can go for that. Or this one, the PCSX Rearmed, is actually meant for mobile processors, but it's a really great troubleshooting tool if you're having trouble getting a game to run. So those are the different choices that we have. We've chosen 3 cores for now. So with those cores downloaded, I'm going to go back and back again, back to the main menu. And now before we can play our games, there's one more step we have to take, which is we have to import those games into Retroarch. So we're going to go over here on the left, we're going to say import content, we're going to scan a directory, and then you're going to just navigate using your controller to the directory where your games are stored. Now for our purposes here, I have a little sandbox set up here, and I have some ROMs that I dumped earlier today. I'm going to scan each directory. And I'm going to go back, 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 back. And let's see. So it looks like we have a little problem here, because I scanned 3 directories. I scanned PlayStation, Super Nintendo, and NES, but I don't see any NES games here. So I'm going to try a little bit of quick troubleshooting, and I'm kind of glad that happened because it gives me an opportunity to show you this. And this is one of the things that is a little hit or miss that I don't like about this. When that happens, you have to do a manual scan. So you go to import content, manual scan. You choose your directory just like you did before with the automated scan. And again, I have my little Retroarch sandbox here, isolated from the main Retroarch that I have. We're scanning NES, and we're going to choose from this list Nintendo Entertainment System. So that's going to force Retroarch to look at that folder and find any Nintendo Entertainment System games. That could just be because I was using an unexpected folder name, but NES is what I understood the expected folder name to be, so I'm not sure why that was an issue. I'm going to go to Start Scan, and now it should work just fine. So that's what you have to do. If it doesn't scan the platform in, then just manually do it. You can also go to Scan File and just scan files manually if they don't show up with the directory scan as well. And now if you look, now I have my Nintendo Entertainment System. I have all my platforms down here. Now this UI is a big improvement over the old UI. If you still have the old UI, you're going to want to switch to this one. And it's very easy to do that. But that's something that I could go over in another video, or really quickly at the end of this one. Now, we have 3 games to try. So let's go ahead and fire it up. So here is Final Fantasy. Now normally you'd see that they sometimes have a thumbnail there, but that feature in my experience doesn't always seem to work. Let's see if we can download it though. Did it work? Oh look, it worked. That's great. And it does have a little bit of metadata here. So that's a pretty nifty little feature. We can download our thumbnails here. Alright, good. So I'm actually pretty happy. It looks like downloading the thumbnails is working pretty well this time. So that's pretty exciting. So now if we look through our games, we have our little thumbnail on the side. It gives a nice little visual flair. So let's go ahead and run Final Fantasy. It's going to ask us which core we want. So we're going to choose our Nestopia core, or whatever core you've decided on. And then run to start the game. Yeah, it's going to take a moment. So just to make it a little bit easier to hear me, I just turned off the sound in the game for now. And look at this, check this out. I am playing my game straight out of the box. I didn't even have to do any configuration at all. My controller works, and look, I can play the game just like this. I think that's pretty great, but there's something else I want to show you. So I just used the F1 key to go into the menu, but remember before I talked about never having to touch my keyboard? So we're going to do something here. We're going to go to the options and we're going to change something. So first we're going to go back to the main menu. We're going to go to settings, input, and check this out. Hotkeys, menu toggle gamepad combo. This is one of the coolest features in Retroarch. Choose this and you can choose any one of these button combinations to open up the menu when you're in game. So if you're, for example, like I said earlier, if you're using like a Steam Link or you're gaming away from the screen where you can't touch the keyboard, you can use one of these options. I like this one. If you have analog sticks, you can use your L3 and R3 buttons to toggle the menu, which I think is really fantastic. So that's what I'm doing now. But you know what? I'm sorry, I have an itch here. I'm not picking, I promise. I'm gonna go back here, all the way back to the main menu, because I'm done with this game for now. I've had enough. I've slain my dragons, and I would like a little change of pace. So I'm gonna go ahead and play a little Street Fighter. Again, we choose our core, and we select run. Here we go, and now we can play some Street Fighter 2. So if you look at the SNES 9X core right out of the box, it is very, very accurate, right? This looks a lot like Super Nintendo. It even kind of shrinks down the image to make it, look more like a Super Nintendo screen, which is great. But at the same time, maybe you want this a little bit modern, maybe you want to change that. And again, the controller works out of the box, no configuration required, unless you're using some kind of weird controller, or if you're doing like an arcade cabinet where you have to configure a joystick. You don't have to do any kind of controller configuration. It's really come a long way since I first downloaded the app back in the day. But that's really, really great. So now let's try our PlayStation game. But there's something you have to do before you can play PlayStation, and this is true of a lot of disc-based games. I'm just going to show you real quick here. I already did this ahead of time, but you need one of these. You need it's not gonna show you because it's Retroarch. Hold on. Let me see. No, I'm not gonna be able to show you this. Let's see. Darn. So I really wanted to show you this, but OBS isn't gonna let me. But what you have to do is you have to drop a BIOS in the system folder. I'll get a screen cap, and I'll just pop that in when I edit the video. I'll just do that now with the snipping tool. So I can show you what it looks like. Gonna stick that in the video folder for now. Now I can't tell you where to get a BIOS. You'll have to figure that one out on your own, but you need the BIOS in order to play PlayStation games, and that's true of any disc-based system, whether it's CD or floppy, whatever. They all require a BIOS in order to run. That's basically like the system firmware for the system. So I chose my core BOPSX hardware, and I'm going to run Tekken 2. I chose this game because this is one of my favorites that I happen to have a disc of, so... Actually, there's a little bit of a funny story with this. You can disable this BIOS also. There's a little funny story with this. I first got this game for Christmas when I was like a teenager, and my nephew, who was a baby at the time, got his hands on it. And he broke it. He broke my Tekken 2 disc, and it was like one of my favorite games. But it still worked. You could still play the game, just all the cutscenes were missing, which I thought was kind of strange. Oh man, what a fantastic game! It's so weird. There's no Mishima here. It's so bizarre. You have to finish the game first to unlock him. And you can see it looks, I mean, it actually doesn't look too bad, but it looks definitely very primitive, and we can make this look better. We can make this look a great deal better than it currently does. It's funny, if you play like Tekken 7 now and you go back and play this, it's come far. I'm like trying to do moves that don't exist. There you go. So we played a couple of games here and got a little bit of a feel for what it's like. And as you can see, out of the box, without having to do too much configuration, it's actually pretty nice. But there's definitely some things that could be fixed, right? So we're going to do a little bit of fixing with our next video. We're going to make things look a little bit nicer, and we're going to get into the configurations a little bit. We're actually going to be doing a lot of going into settings and then looking at what you can do in Retroarch. But also, under the quick menu, if you go into options, you can do options for your emulator, for your core. And I think that's what a lot of people don't like, is that they're like, oh, how do I do the options? And it's not really all that intuitive. You have to go to quick menu and then go to options, and these are the options for your emulator or for your core. And if we look at something like PlayStation, there's a lot of stuff here. So it's something you have to, really think about what you want to do and how you want to set everything up. But for now, we're going to go to the main menu. We're going to quit Retroarch in just a moment. But I think that we've really covered pretty much everything on the basic setup of Retroarch. I know this was a little bit of a long video, but I think it kind of gets you started. If you had any more questions about Retroarch, let me know in the comments. I'll definitely address your questions in the next upcoming videos. And we're going to do a lot of cool stuff. We're going to do a little bit of retro achievements. We're going to do saving. We're going to do netplay a little bit. We'll do a few different things. I'll show you the how to record video, how to record screenshots, and you're gonna have a full education on Retroarch, I guess. But that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, please like, subscribe, turn on notifications, leave a comment, share. That'll help me out with growing the channel a little bit, get the algorithm to like me a little bit more. And if there's any content that you want to see, I'm doing scripted content, I'm doing gameplay content. So anything in particular that you wanted to see, just let me know and I'll try and see what I can do as far as making that content for you. For now, thank you very much for watching and have fun playing.